Hello everyone, I am here with Leon Constantine, ex-professional, also now working in the agency business. And we are here today to introduce you to Leon, to our guest today. Leon has made over 356 professional appearances, scoring over 91 goals, spreading 19 clubs between 2000 and 2017, where he started off his early life pretty much coming from Hackney, but of Jamaican parentage, playing for clubs such as Edgware Town, to Millwall, to Leighton Orient, Partick Thistle, Brentford, Southend United, Peterborough United, Torquay United, Port Vale, Leeds United, Oldham Athletic, Northampton Town, Cheltenham Town, Hereford United, York City, Braintree Town, Lewes, Tooting and Mitcham United, Boston United, Ardsley, Brimston, Enfield Borough, to people who would be familiar with all of these clubs. But I just want to welcome you to the Continental Soccer TV podcast. Leon, great to have you on here, man. You know,
it's good to be on there with you as well, mate.
We met each other through a scout at Fulham, and see, I've always obviously I met up with you with my chief operating officer, Andre Kanchelskis. We met in central London, and really enjoyed meeting you, and really just a genuine football person. But I just wanted to and kind of like who was Leon Constantine? If we were in primary school or elementary school or high school together, who's Leon Constantine?
I think I'm just one of those guys. Get on with everyone. Grew up in a broken home. Well, when I say a broken home, I mean that my dad didn't live with us. So my dad lived in Tottenham and my mum was Hackney. But you know, most people always have this kind of story. I would come from a broken family and things. My childhood was brilliant.
Right.
My childhood was brilliant. My mum and dad got on very well together. My dad came round whenever he wanted to. You know, had, you know, fantastic childhood. Never saw my mum and dad argue with each other. They had a brilliant relationship. So, you know, and I enjoyed it that way, to be fair.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it that way. So my childhood was very, very happy. Grew up on the estate. Obviously, people not too familiar with inner London. Obviously, a lot of council estates, just loads of kids. You know, you all get together, you meet up, you play football, you play run-outs, you climb. You know, we spent our whole childhood outside. There was youth clubs, so we all used to go to the youth clubs where you do different sports, boxing, table tennis, pool, snooker. So, you know, it was really, really, really fun times. It was, as much as it was a dangerous area where I grew up, if you was from that area, everyone knew who you were.
Right, okay.
It was only outsiders, I suppose, that might have been intimidated because it was very, very rough. There was a lot of crime, a lot of things going on. But for us, growing up there, you know, I could walk anywhere at any time of night time and never feel like I was, you know, in any danger. So it was a really, really, really good childhood. Football was always the go-to thing. So even though you might not have been up to some of the bad things that some of the other boys were up to, they all had a passion for football. So that was like the building of relationships.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
So see, when you were coming from the background, obviously you'd come from, Leon. So your parents, obviously you're of Jamaican descent. So your family, was your mum and dad both from Jamaica, and then they kind of moved to England before you were born?
So both of them were from Jamaica. They both came over. Couldn't tell you what year. I'm not too good with the history behind things, but they moved to Peterborough.
Okay.
Because back in those days, what it was, the parents came over first, and then they sent for their children.
Right. Okay.
So my mum's mum and dad, and my dad's, they would have done the same thing. So they all came to Peterborough, and then obviously as time went on, they kind of filtered down into London and settled in whatever area they settled. My dad happened to settle. He was in Hackney at one stage, but then he moved to Tottenham, and then my mum's obviously stayed in Hackney, and that's where she is to this day.
Right. Okay. And so, so your mum always, and then your dad, is he still in Tottenham?
Yeah, my dad's still in Tottenham. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
He's right behind the football ground.
Oh, so Tottenham supporter then, you know?
No. I'm an Arsenal supporter.
Oh,
I can't stand the place.
yeah, that's right. Being rivals, even though all professionals, they were once supporters, you know.
But I must say, the new stadium is on another level, though.
Yes,
I've got to give credit where credit is due. It's
yeah, that's it. Yeah,
it's breathtaking. So
it was like $1 billion, but so it's interesting. So literally, so obviously you're kind of growing up in the environment where, and I think in terms of as your football career kind of evolves, Leon, and you're kind of growing up and you're getting into high school. Was professional football, was that always your goal? Was that your aspiration?
Do you know what? It wasn't, you know. I just wanted to play the game. And one day maybe play in the FA Cup, you know, because that's what you used to watch, innit? Like, that was, you know, hopefully one day you might. But because there was hardly anybody that I knew, one person, and I only knew that person. I didn't even knew him personally like that, but through a scout, when I eventually got scouted by Watford when I was like under 11s or 12s,
okay.
This guy, who's still good friends with me to this day, he used to work with a team called Arvinsdale.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that team is still going now. At the time, it was two rivals, Arvinsdale and Westwood Boys. I played for Westwood Boys.
Okay.
And Arvinsdale were another team. They had good. You could say they was on par with us. We never ever played each other because we was in different leagues. But
okay.
they were good. So, you know what I mean? You either played for Westwood Boys or you played for Arvinsdale. Then there was other little clubs like Senrab. Yeah. They were good as well. Who I think Ashley Cole and them lot played for them. But anyway, so I'm going off the point. So Chris Bart Williams played for Arvinsdale.
Okay, right.
So he was the first person that went on really and made it.
Right.
But, you know, played for Sheffield Wednesday, Nottingham Forest. He had a very, very good career. Right. But other than that, there was nobody that we knew that made it in football. So none of us really kind of envisioned that we could make it because we never had, you know what I mean? We never had no one to say, oh, you know what, I want to be like him or I want to be like that one. Do you know what I mean? So you just played for the fun of the game. That was it.
So do you think, like, when you look at, because it's funny, like you mentioned Senrab there, because I've obviously been over at Senrab and stuff, and I've seen boys there when I used to run my soccer school, and I'd actually go to Senrab and I'd locate players, you know, because I knew they were all good players, you know. So
Senrab, their history,
yeah, it's remarkable.
Is it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean they've had Lloyd Samuel, John Terry. Do you know what I mean? Jermaine Defoe, Paul Konchesky. I mean, they've had some really good. I mean, the fact that you've had an England captain and probably one of the best centre halves this country's ever produced. Do you know what I mean? Even speaking to Graham Ricks about John Terry, you know what I mean? Is that even when he was,
yeah, of course, yeah.
It's a really nice football culture. I would say to people, if you want to know, go to a really good grassroots football club in each city. You'll only probably find 2 or 3 of them that have produced players and where you can get really good coaching and it's community friendly and it's quite rare. It's quite rare to find.
Yeah, I mean it's funny because one of my friends who I grew up playing with, who was a top striker, you know, he could just. You mean I used to score goals, but I was more of a tricks person, like go past someone and things like that. He was just an out and out goal scorer, and he put something up on Facebook the other day, and he was watching his son play for the same team that we all played for.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? We're all, we're 42 now, and now his son's playing for this team. So it just shows you, that is years of history. Do you know what I mean? I was buzzing of it because I was like, wow, that's mad. Like, your son's playing for the same team that you played for when you was his age. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's
That's
just nice to
history,
see
isn't it?
that. Yeah, it's nice to see that the club, because obviously, we all know the struggles with Grassroots.
Right.
So there's so much clubs that, have folded. And I tell you, the difference then to now is these people, and you don't realize, you take these things for granted, but a lot of these people that supported these grassroots clubs when we were kids, they weren't making any money.
Right. That's right. They weren't. Yeah. So
do you know what I mean? They did it out of love and commitment and, dedication towards football and helping like people like myself. Like, do you know what I mean? And at the time, you just feel like it's just the norm, innit? And I suppose the kids nowadays see it the same way. But
yeah,
but now I'm older and I look back, and sometimes you look at how much it costs to run a run a club, and sometimes when it, the manager's chasing you for subs and you're like trying to get away with not paying it and things like that, or if you're really good, the manager might say, look, I'll pay your subs for you because I want you to be a part of the team. Because some of us obviously come from backgrounds where money was tight, and your parents, you've got 2-3 kids, they can't afford to do it, really can't. And so now I look back and I feel like, wow, we owe these people a lot, because if they never provided that platform, absolutely no chance of you getting scouted or being seen. So now I take my hat off to all of those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's it's interesting, because I was actually, when I speak to I was speaking to Graham Ricks about that. I was asking him about when he was at Chelsea, when we had him on the podcast, and I asked him about, in terms of professional clubs and the distance between them and Grassroots, and I said, well, if these boys clubs and grassroots clubs don't exist, professional football won't exist, because that's where that's the first place they go to, and where's the connection to these people, you know what I mean? And I think that sometimes is missing, Leon, where people don't really, professional clubs, like you saw John Terry, I think he bailed out, I think it was Senrab about 8 or 9 years ago, I think it was like 2011, 2012. Or no, I think it was longer. I think it was about 5 years ago, and he gave money, but it was undisclosed. But do you think so? When you look at that, that really was an inspiration for you, kind of going forward. Now, if you kind of fast forward, Leon, so you kind of went and you came into professional football.
Nick, can I just touch on that?
Yeah, go on ahead.
That sorry to jump in, but this is what annoys me now about the game. So you've just mentioned John Terry as, has done something that he really doesn't have to do.
Right.
Yeah. And he's bailed out a club that obviously is very close to his heart and means a lot to him. And he's bailed out that club. He's helped that club to survive. Yeah. Because it'd be an absolute crime for a team like Senrab to have to fold.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because those areas where those players come up is going to be here for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
So if they haven't got a club to attach themselves to within that area, which would be Senrab,
yeah,
like, where do these guys go?
Right. Absolutely.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Right. So, but they will be quick to put something in the paper about John Terry on a negative.
Right.
But they would never ever highlight the fact that he's done something good, to a community. And that's what annoys me. So I take my hat off, like, you know what I mean? That information. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, because I know Tony Carroll, the head of Senrab there. He's a really great guy. He's been at the club over 30 years, and what have you. And I think if you look at the amount of boys that have come out of there, I mean, you obviously go back all the way to Ray Wilkins, Do you know what I mean? You look at,
Yeah.
so you're looking at quite a few generations. And I think within Grassroots, I think that's where I think it's such a critical component for the game, that has to obviously. And I think now you're seeing the FA, especially the English FA, because when I'm in Holland or Belgium or Germany, Grassroots is very important for them. It's an important facet for them, and as a matter of fact, they recruit a lot of their professional coaches out of those clubs, and I think you're starting to see that happening in England now, where people are becoming, obviously these clubs have a community arm where they have community centres, so it's not a high level, but I think clubs are now starting to look more at coaches where you can actually gain employment eventually at these clubs, which I think is only a good thing. The FA are doing, giving band systems to clubs that do well, based upon how they manage the club, how they're, you know what I mean, what league their team is in. So I think those things, would you say those things are improving, Leon?
Well, I'm maybe 50-50, because like what you said, like these guys who run these grassroots clubs, some of them, they're just passionate for the game. They haven't got all the badges in the world. Do you know what I mean? But it's interesting you just saying that, because I had a conversation with a coach yesterday, and he was, putting himself down, saying, I haven't got all the, because I've not, my resume doesn't say I've got this badge or that badge, or I've coached at this level or that level. It's always going to hold me back. And I said to him, but you know how to get the best out of the kids,
right?
Because you understand them. And when you're dealing with grassroots, a lot of these kids, we're coming from, poor backgrounds,
right?
Do you know what I mean? We're exposed to drugs, crime. We're considered to have an attitude problem, and you go into a club, and because the coach doesn't understand where we're coming from, because they live in Surrey or they live in wherever they live, straight away, you know what I mean? Oh, he's got attitude problem. Oh, you know what I mean? And that's not just for black players. I'm talking about white, and because obviously grassroots, when you're dealing with Hackney, Tottenham and places like that, we've all come from a multicultural background.
Right. Absolutely.
So, a white kid could be talking just the same as I talk, because that's the environment he's been brought up into. So then when he goes into a football environment now, a professional environment, straight away he's like, this white boy thinks he's black. No, he doesn't. He's only talking the way he talks because that's what he's been brought up, that's what he's been exposed to. Yeah, and he's not got an attitude problem. So when you're dealing with some of these guys, even though they haven't got the badges, that reflect, their level of coaching, sometimes those guys would be the better people to deal with these grassroots players when they get into the professional system.
Right.
I had a friend call me, 2 players, I think they've moved to Chelsea and Tottenham, and both of those players have called him saying how they miss his coaching and the way he dealt with them. And they're at top Premier League clubs.
Wow.
Do you understand? So it shows you how important, you know what I mean? Like,
do you think the community part, Leon, sorry, do you think the community part and the connection that players form in the early stages from transition from grassroots when they start going to a professional club? Because at a professional club, if you look at it from a mercenary point of view, they're looking to turn that person into an asset. So personally, their focus is not to have a really great personal relationship. So you, from your experience, what would you say that you saw when you made that transition from a personal point of view? Did you?
Well, I just felt like I had no relationship with anybody. Like, so obviously I was at Watford. Like I said to you, the scout who took Watford is someone that, we was around him for a few years and we had a good relationship with him. And then once we all got kept on and moved on to the older group, like, we no longer had that relationship with him.
Okay.
Yeah. So where before I never ever missed a training session because he used to pick us up. If you couldn't pick us up, we'd all meet together at a train station and get to where we got to get to for training. Yeah, this was at Watford. Soon as, you know, we moved on to the bigger group, like there wasn't that relationship there anymore, and it was inevitable. Within a year or so, I dropped out of the game because, like, I didn't want to go training anymore. The fun weren't there anymore. Do you know what I mean? There was no one to kind of relate to. Like, I just become another body. Do you know what I mean?
What year was this, Leon?
1989. I would have been no, it would have been 89. So
89.
I would have been 11 when I first. Then I was at Watford for a good few years, and then we all got moved on to Aylesbury, which is where, you know, they take the best from those centres that are dotted out all over the country. And I said after that, just kind of just, you know what I mean? I was at secondary school, and then I just started hanging out with my mates and just didn't go training. Like, I just weren't really bothered anymore. I wasn't enjoying it like I was before.
So you think, so when you look at, like, I mean, if you look, obviously, Jadon Sancho, you look at him as an example. He was at Watford, but the way I've kind of understood it is that he went into, if you look at Watford now, the kids do, I suppose the kids are enjoying it a lot more, but he also came from identical background to you, because he was from like South London, and he was playing in the streets, and you see that style of do you think that's what really does help the kids enjoy the game, is more street football? But do you think
of course
that?
It does. I think, you know, when I was like this, it's just changed now. I was speaking to a teacher who, good friend of mine, he's a teacher in a school, and he said to me, there's a kid at his school who's at Chelsea, and Chelsea have basically told the school he is not to play for the school team.
Okay.
He's not to play for the district. Like, even playing in the playground.
Right. And how old is he?
This boy is 13, I think.
He's 13?
13, yeah.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? Now, when I was playing, when I was coming up in the game, I played for my Sunday team. Yeah, I played for the district team. Then you play for London. And then if you was good enough, you get scouted.
Right, okay. And so,
do you know what I mean?
So when you were moving through that transition, did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the process of that?
Yeah, it was great, man. Like, you know, when my school teacher, Mr. Bruce, and I owe him everything, because he selected me to go on the trial for the district, which was Hackney.
Yeah. It's
Hackney and Tower Hamlets, but at the time it was just Hackney. And I didn't want to go. I was like, I didn't want to go. I was like, and he said to me, like, go. And I went down there, and, you know, you train, and then you get selected, you get kept on, or you get told, you know, you didn't make it, which happened to a lot of people. And then obviously I made the team and travelled to the Isle of Wight, travelled to Jersey for different tournaments, met some great people from Ireland.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? We lost to a team from Ireland, from Belfast. We lost to a team in the final. But they were like, we were really good friends. It was hard we had to play against each other, because that competitiveness, it was just hard to go and smash someone or do something when you like the person. Do you know what I mean? At that time when you're kids. And so, you know, we did all that. And then obviously after that, you got selected to play for London. Do you know what I mean? And then from there, you got scouted, like, you know.
So when you're talking about going through that process, like, do you think it was more difficult to get scouted then, because you had to go through a lot more hoops, versus now they don't really have to do that? It's
100%.
Yes,
100%. But the thing is, if them days there, if you got scouted or a player got scouted, you wouldn't even have to see him play. You see, like back in the day, like, so I remember a boy had been scouted by Norwich, and when he come and play football with us, just like on a normal street football, he was different class.
Right.
He was different class. He's like, you could just see why. Nowadays, all of these boys, they walk around in these tracksuits, you know, scouted by this one, scouted by that one, all this kind of stuff. And then you watch them play and you think, huh? How?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? But what happened, because summertime, they're so quick to get people in the system now.
Right.
Now, you got kids like in the system at 8 years old.
Right.
9 years old.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? My friend of mine, his son, how old would he be now? Maybe be my son's age, maybe about 11 now. Okay. And I'm talking at 8. He was scout. I won't name the club or anything like that. I want to do that, but it was a big club, and they basically offered over 10 years, offered him $500,000.
Right, $500,000.
And that's for an 8-year-old.
That's outrageous. So when you look at it from that perspective, Leon, because obviously you went through a transition, and when your club career actually really started to launch, like, do you think it gave you that time? It gave you your childhood? Because I remember reading Jaap Stam's autobiography, and one of the things that he said in it, which I thought was, he said these kids' lives are mapped out for them from when they're six or seven, all the way to before they become a professional, before they sign their first professional contract. Versus what you're talking about, you got to go through a transition of enjoying street football, you know what I mean, and enjoying the game. So from a mental, but do you think as well that's why there's more mental health problems in football now? Because
I think so. Because remember, a lot of these kids, you know, if the kid signs at Arsenal at the age of 6 years old, you think you've made it. The parents think they've made it.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? You know, and it's a very proud moment, but parents are just as much to blame.
Right.
For these mental health issues that happen to their children. They are the catalysts.
Right.
For it, as well as the club.
Right.
Because the clubs don't really help you. You know what I mean? Once they release you, that's it, you're done. They always say, we'll help you, but they don't really. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Unless you've got a really good relationship with someone that within the club. But most of the time, you know, if you get released, that's it. You know, it's a very tough industry to be in. Whether it's right or wrong, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
And social media has had an impact.
I think what it is, you got a lot. Remember, like I said, you got a child gets signed to a club from 6 or 8 years old. He's in the club, gets kept on after 2 years, kept on, might get his scholar, doesn't get his pro. Now, that's what, from the age of 8, you get your scholar at 16, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's 8 years, right, of believing that you're going to make it, okay?
Right.
That's 8 years of family members, friends. How's Nick getting on? How's Leon getting on? Yeah, he's at Arsenal. Yeah, he's doing well. He scored this weekend. Yeah, he done this, this club's looking at him. The club love him. So you're the talk of the town.
Right.
Yeah? Now, you don't get the pro.
Right.
All of a sudden, you see that parent that was so proud, who was always at every training session, every game. Now, you're like damaged goods.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Right. Now, when no one don't talk about you no more. Like, he's not playing. He got released. No one don't ask you no more questions. Like, you don't exist anymore.
Right.
How do you think that makes a 16-year-old feel?
Absolutely.
And then what the parents do, because they're so keen on their child being a pro, they throw him into another club.
Right.
And then he doesn't make it there. They throw him into another one, doesn't make it there. Before you know it, you just give up.
Right.
You just give up. You just think, you know what? Like, and then, like I said, no one doesn't talk to you about football anymore because You're not in the tracksuit anymore. You're not like, do you know what I mean? So it's a build up, yeah, to that massive disappointment. And even though you know thousands and thousands of people get released, when you get released, you actually feel like you're the only person in the world.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a very, very, very difficult. And I always say to parents, yeah, right, you have to be very, very careful how you deal with your child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop trying to live your career or your lack of your career through your child.
Right.
Just support them. If they're good enough, even if they're not good, if they enjoy football, just enjoy. Like, do you know what I mean?
What was that? So, just to ask you on that, what was your parents? For any parents that are kind of watching this, what was the relationship your parents had with you in order for you to be successful in when you were doing, or was their approach more laid back? What was their approach towards your football career? And
my dad's not a football person.
Okay.
So my dad never really. Do you know what I mean? I don't have no vision of my dad actually taking me to football.
Okay.
Yeah. My mum was a football person, but my mum had to work 2 or 3 jobs.
Right. Okay.
So my mum, if she could, she would have took me. But I have fond memories of my mum. My mum used to come to my Sunday football games. Her, my auntie, they used to cook chicken, rice and peas, and bring it for everyone. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were just fun times. Like, do you know what I mean? But, you know, if my mum could have, she would have took me to football. But in order for me to get to football, I had to rely on either a parent who drove and was taking their son to a game, or I had to get there myself.
So it was so you think the self-motivation that, I suppose, the previous generation versus millennials, would you say that they're less motivated because everything is just so accessible?
Oh, everything's done for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, I've got people phoning me saying, "Oh, I need to find a club." Like, or how do I get to it? You've got Google Maps. You've got everything you need to find whatever you want to find. You could go on the internet, local clubs in this area. Do you know what I mean? You know, back in the day, we had to go out there and find it ourselves.
Right.
You know, but because you love football, it wasn't a big deal. It's like, well, I love this game. So wherever, you know, if I walked through the park and there were like a group of kids playing football, I'll stand there. Can I jump in? Like, is anyone need an extra player? You know, sometimes you get told yes. Sometimes, you know, and then you'll go and play, and then the boys be like, "Wow, this boy can play." And then after that, you've made a set of friends.
Absolutely, that's exactly how it was. Yeah, exactly.
And that was not only was it good at building relationships with different sorts of people, yeah, it helped you as a character, built your character. It gave you the confidence to go into any area. So I used to go to South London. I used to go to North. Well, like, obviously I'm from North London as well. So I used to go to Enfield and play football. I go and play wherever.
So Leon, so as you kind of transitioned, so as you left this kind of arena of your life and you moved into professional football, talk to us about that transition and what shaped you from being at Watford.
Obviously left Watford. A situation happened at Watford where we got followed home by someone on the train, and you know, there was 5 of us and we got followed home. And at that time when we were kids, sometimes because there was so much things going on, the guardian angels were traveling on the train.
Right.
So we told one of the guardian angels that this guy was kept following us and looking at us. All of us had our football boots tucked in our jackets, because we would just say, if he come near us, we're going to hit him with it. You know what I mean? That was our mentality. But right. When I told my mum that, my mum said, "You're not going back there. Right. You're not going up all that distance on your own. No chance."
Right.
So that was it. Then obviously I'm in secondary school. I got an opportunity because the manager who I used to play against went into Palace. and he wanted me to come down there. I went and trained at Palace for maybe 2 training sessions, and then at that time, I'm a young teenager. I'm hanging around with all my friends. Do you know what I mean? Talking, and I missed training 1 week, missed training the second week, and then I just didn't go back. I just thought, you know what? Can't be bothered. That's it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Forward on to leaving school. I went to college. I managed to get into Charlton because I was playing for a Sunday League team, men's team.
Right.
And I was doing really, really well. Like, at that time, I was the youngest person. I think I was 16. And I was playing men's football, and I was scoring goals, and I was, making the local paper. So Charlton come in for me, and I went into Charlton, trained really well. But at the time, I was doing my my college program. So I was 18. I was 18 because I was doing a BTEC diploma, and part of the course I had to do my work experience, and I got to do work experience at the BBC, and you had to do that in order to pass the course.
Okay.
And that obviously clashed with my time at Charlton. So when I went into Charlton, I trained really well, and Kevin Lisby, who's a very good friend of mine, he said to me, Keith Peacock was asking where I'd been, why I haven't come back. And he told me, look, Lee, here's Keith's number. You need to phone him. And I was too scared to call him. I didn't want to tell him that I had to pass, I had to do my work experience at the BBC in order to pass my course, because I just didn't feel like I was going to make it as a footballer. Like, I was enjoying it, but I just didn't feel like, you know what I mean? It was like, do I go to Charlton and risk maybe getting in, maybe not? Or do I finish my course and I'm guaranteed to pass?
Right.
So that happened. And then obviously
So you felt like you didn't have a lot of support in certain areas. Would that be right?
Yeah, of course. As much as, you enjoy football, but at the time, my mum, she loved football, but if she had a choice of a football or education at that time, it was like, get your education, because like I said, there was nothing around us that gave anyone any confidence that you could actually make it in this game. It weren't like, oh yeah, my friend's son's at Arsenal. Oh yeah, my friend's son's here. My friend's, like, do you know what I mean? And like I said, coming up, only a selective players got scouted. So it weren't like now where you could walk down the road and see like 10 players, 10 boys who are all at different clubs. You know what I mean? It wasn't like that. So for the parent, they couldn't actually relate to anyone really making it. So I don't blame. My mum was right. Go and get your education. Like, do you know what I mean? Because we don't really know what's going to happen with this football game. Like, is right. So I did that. Then I got into university, and while I was at university, I was working at Marks and Spencer's, which I had started working at 16. Okay. So I could work on a Saturday and play football on a Sunday, so it was fine. I was at Marks's for nearly 5 years, and I realised a boy said to me he'd been at Marks's for 4 years, and I said, I started a year before you. I go, that means I've been here half a decade. Within 2 weeks, I just handed in my notice. Right. I handed in my notice. I don't want to be here no more. I'm going to go and find myself a Saturday team, because I'm working on the Saturday, which means I have got no opportunity to play.
So you were 21. You would have been 21 at this point?
I would have been 20.
20, okay.
I would have been 20. So so I just, my plan was find a semi-pro, because obviously at that time, even though as a kid, I went into Charlton from Sunday League football, as I got a bit older, you needed to be playing proper semi-pro football played on a Saturday. Do you know what I mean? So that's really where, if you've not made it at 16, that's kind of where you got scouted from Saturday League football. Right. So I found a team called Edgware, and my plan was to play semi-pro football while I'm at uni, and by the time I get to time I finish my degree, hopefully I'll make the Ryman Prem, which was like a good level at that time. And then I could mostly focus on that fully once I finished my degree. Well, I went to Edgware, and within 1 year at Edgware, I think I hit 40 goals, and I went back into Charlton again.
Right, okay.
But this time Charlton was in the Premier League. So even though they kept me there for like 8 weeks, I trained really well. And Keith Peacock said, look, you know, you've come in and you've literally gone past our defenders that we're looking to keep us, that's looking to keep us in the Premier League. Like, right. You're ripping them up in training, but we need an experienced striker to keep us in the Premier League. And obviously I had zero of that experience. Right. So, but obviously because my attitude was good, I trained well and done well down there. They put me into Millwall. Because Millwall, I played in a trial game against Millwall. So Millwall saw enough of me to say, you know what, cool, we'll take him. And I went into Millwall for 2 weeks and then signed after a week. And that's where the journey started. And so as you kind of went through and what would you say like was the key for you whenever you went into Millwall, and then obviously you went on to play for clubs like Leeds? What would you say the transition was from a club like Millwall, and then you're going to a club like Leeds, who have obviously been more Premier League proven than Millwall? What would you say the transition was? Well, I mean, obviously the transition was a lot easier because I'd had the experience and I'd scored goals. I'd played first team football. If I think I'd have went into Leeds straight away from non-league football, I might have been a bit, you know, bamboozled. But because I'd obviously built up, you know, a few games, I understood the game. So going to Leeds, I was actually excited because I was like, you know what, I've scored goals at teams that's always battling relegation. Right. And I'm now going to a massive club with unbelievable players. Do you know what I mean? If I keep myself fit, I know I can score goals there. Right. But unfortunately, I got injured. I was out for like 7 months with 3 different injuries, and it just kind of killed me. Do you know what I mean? As you see kind of your progression, what do you think in terms of a lot of the dynamics at that time? When you think about how managers managed you, what do you think? Because obviously you're literally making the journey by yourself. And a lot of, would I be right in saying that, Leon? It's like it's all falling on you. There's no support structure that's really helping you. You're having to go in and make judgments like when you worked at the job. But would you not say that was actually a positive, because it was life experience, like real life experience you were gaining? Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I mean, sometimes people say, would you change things? And sometimes I wish I could have got into the game a lot earlier. Do you know what I mean? Or had that focus at 16, because I would have had like 5 years of experience prior to when I turned pro. Do you know what I mean? And even though I turned pro at 21, I really didn't start playing consistently until I was 24. Right. So when you add that up from 16 to 24, yeah, that's what, like 9 years? Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, of professional football that I missed out on. Right. Do you understand what I mean? Because that turning pro at 21 and not playing to 20, those 3 years was like an education. You know, you're learning the game. You know what I mean? Right. Certain things you've not, obviously, when you're playing street football, you just play wherever, don't you? This is all about positional play, how to work as a partnership. Do you know what I mean? Different periods of the game, you know, keep the ball, don't do anything stupid. Right. Do you know what I mean? You learn, it's game management, isn't it? You learn that when you get into the professional game. Absolutely, you know? Yeah. But I think it's you're right. You're kind of doing, you know, all your parents can do really is try and help you with a little bit of money to get to training. And like I said, my mum wasn't driving. if she was, she would have took me.
Right.
100%. She would have took me. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and like I said, my generation, and I'm speaking now for black kids.
Yeah.
My generation of our parents all came from the Caribbean.
Right.
So they didn't have a passion for football. My dad's a cricket man.
Right. That's interesting. Mm.
Do you know what I mean? So most of my peers, when we was growing up, we never had our dads to take us to football.
Right.
If you saw a dad at football, there must be one black dad amongst 10 white dads.
Right.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So,
absolutely.
But you see, for my generation now, yeah, all of us are born and bred in England. So we have a passion for football.
Right.
So the support networks there. You go to a match now, you'll see every other parent be a black parent.
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yeah, it's a very, you would say the culture, would you say like the culture has shifted compared to previous generations?
100%. 100%. Do you know what I mean? 100%.
So when you look at for example, when your parents obviously came here, and you look at, because when you look at football football is such a social tool. If you look at football as a whole, so outside of professional football, but when you're kind of being shaped, and you were being shaped into becoming the player you became, would you say that the whole dynamic for you moved kind of going forward? When did you realize, like, you know what, I've got a genuine chance of being a professional footballer? When did that realization, that epiphany, happen for you, Leo?
I think going into Charlton, that second time, I think I being able to hold my own against guys who I'd watched on TV, that was the eye opener. Like, do you know what? I think there's something here, you know.
Right.
So when I went into Millwall, I just went in there so hungry and enthusiastic,
right,
to do well. That's why they signed me after a week, even though I was meant to be there for 2.
Right. Okay. Wow.
I'd had that experience of men's football from the age of 16. So obviously, when I got into men's football, especially them days when I was playing, right? I was playing against predominantly all black teams.
Right.
Now, these guys were rough. I'm talking teams from Hackney, from South London. I'm talking like some of the guys you would be playing against, like, they come up hard and they don't care how old you are. If you're on that pitch, they're going to treat you like a man.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And I remember the first time I brought the ball down and I thought, oh, that's a good touch. Looked around to see if everyone was kind of, you know what I mean, as impressed as I was. And this guy just kicked me right in my chest.
Wow. That's yeah.
And I remember I fell on the floor and I wanted to cry. And I looked over, because at the time we used to have quite a lot of like girls from the area used to come and watch the games, and your friends used to come and watch. Like, we had quite a big, we could have like 100 people on the side for a Sunday team. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember looking around, I thought, I can't even cry, because if I do that, I like, everyone's gonna think I'm a pussy. So I sucked it in.
Wow.
And I was like, right, this is serious. So the next time when I brought the ball down, where I got the ball, I was like, boy, I need to get my head up and move it quick.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Which in effect, that helped me, because that experience at men's football, yeah, helped me when I went into the professional game, because I always had that in my head. If you don't control the ball or get your first touch right, yeah, you're going to get smashed.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. School of Hard Knocks lesson 101, right?
Yeah. So, you know what I mean?
Right.
So obviously And, you know, when you start getting kicked around a little bit, you start, after a while, it's either sink or swim, innit? You're going to let someone keep, you know, it's like the school bully, innit?
Yeah.
If he keeps troubling the same person, sooner or later, it's either you're going to be a victim or you're going to turn around.
Yeah.
And even if you get beaten up, you're going to have a fight, innit? That's where development stage. So I got kicked in my chest. I didn't like it. Do you know what I mean? So now it's like, right, okay, I need to move the ball quick. But now, am I going to let this guy just carry on kicking me, or am I going to give it back?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that kind of aggression, obviously, by the time I went into Charlton, then went into Millwall, I was already used to men's football. And I'm talking, these guys are mostly more rougher than, because they're not obviously as good as the professionals. A lot of them, their only reason why they're on a football pitch because they can kick people and smash people. So if you can survive in that arena, by the time you go into a professional game where they're more organised, they're still aggressive, but it's organised aggression, isn't it?
Okay, so anybody that wants to get a hold of Leon, he'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and hope any comments. Obviously, don't forget to follow us at Continental Aspire Shop. You can get us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Leave your comments in the section below. And Leon, thank you very much for today. It's been a real education for everyone, and hopefully everybody's enjoyed it.
It's been brilliant. It's been a pleasure.